Aibo, and welcome to a playlist quick video that we're going to talk about two little concepts that are not little at all. So concept number one is learning how to try to slowly build a culture of trying to become more positive. And then the other example that I have in this is a story, or not a story, but it's a situation that I experienced that talked about how our perspective can really change based on how people view us. So, understanding how people view us is important in regards to how we are communicating what our actions and what the why is behind it. So if people don't understand why we're doing something and there's a negative perspective of us, it's hard to get the support to really be able to get any positive growth, because you're always going to have headwinds and just gravity pushing you down when you just need to lift off. So how do you take off and lift up and soar while not exerting as much stress and effort is kind of what I'm really hoping you might be able to uncover, by just kind of going through this episode and, just hear my stories. And then what you can do is maybe start really thinking and pondering to yourself is, where do you have situations where your perspective and people, where people are reacting wrong to you because they don't understand why. Why are you saying what you're saying, and then also, why are you reacting so hard to something? And that's another thing you need to look through. And then also, let's look at, your positivity or negativity, and let's just talk about, how does it feel in regards to the pattern that you are starting to see, the more that you're able to see your initial reaction as difficulties in life come up. Aibo, everyone, Saul Matthew of Koos Key. It's really nice to make one of these videos. I haven't made one for one of the podcasts and the playlists in some time. So if you are here, welcome. You're probably one of the newer subscribers, and I really appreciate you coming here. What I really hope you feel is a sense of maybe more inner peace, confidence, and just a general sense of assurance that some of the blocks, some of the pain, and some of the worry that you feel is shared. It's a lot more universal than you think. So what I'm hoping for is that you're able to reduce the amount of power that you let those worries control you, and then you're able to then really work on becoming more positive. I think becoming positive is not something that just happens overnight, especially when people have faced trauma or they've just never had a good example of a life where they felt safe. There's been situations, especially in other parts of the world. I live in America, but I grew up in Sri Lanka. I was privileged enough to go back there for about a month at a time every 2 or 3 years ever since I moved at age 6. So that perspective and having those deep roots to, my Sri Lankan roots, my Desi roots, it allows me to have perspective and empathy for anyone who came from those similar situations, live in those similar situations, or they feel like that old school, third world mentality is something that they don't need anymore. But realistically, it's been one of my biggest grounding. But then here in America, we have our confidence and we have knowledge, we have freedom, we have the ability to believe in the potential. And I really hope that the people who are kind of joining me on your own journey, and that you're taking the time to take this content to help boost you and your your dreams. I really hope that you can achieve them. And, you know, the fact that you are watching this is proof that you're an outlier who believes in a better future. So hey, celebrate the fact that you believe in a better future and that you want to run towards the pain and fix it and understand what happened, while other people are okay living in the matrix, or in the sense of just staying so numb that they can't really understand what's happening in this world, or happening to them, or understand their own impact within the world. So it's really important that I think no matter what happens in our life, that we're able to know that we're able to continue. That sometimes to continue, you need to take a day off. To continue, you need to have a day or two where you're not so grinding. You know, I was in corporate America for, you know, I got in at 17, and at 36 is roughly around the time I really kind of came out of corporate America. And, you know, and I knew that it was my time to build my own future. You know, I needed to take my destiny and change the stars and change the future that I have for myself, and I needed to change that. And what I had to do was really work at achieving little milestones, you know, and looking for good signs, you know, auspicious signs. You know, me in Sri Lanka and parts of the East, we have these Vedic charts. We have natal charts that a lot of the people believe in and use here in America. But realistically, these charts are cycles, you know. It's also fate put in belief. So no matter what, whether you are from that Eastern mindset or that Western mindset, just know that understanding and have compassion for the fact that there are differences, but there's probably more in common that we have, really allowed me to believe and to have more faith in the outcome. I realized that what I was going through wasn't so isolating. And that's something that's important, is I feel that as trauma and as things happen in our life, what happens is we end up becoming so afraid or so ashamed of it. And, you know, shame is really powerful because we live based on the judgment and shame and these embarrassing feelings that we have of people in our, you know, life, in our orbit. But ultimately, you know, as we move away from people and we move away from some of these connections, it's harder and harder, you know, to put emphasis on some of these beliefs and some of these viewpoints that other people kind of set for ourselves. Let me tell you a quick story about having to explain to someone at work why we didn't hire them. I had to give news to someone that we, as a department, collectively believed someone's was just not a good fit for their personality and some of their personal actions that they've said and done. Now, I had to be the person delivering this because I was the executive and I was the hiring, you know, manager of that decision. And I wanted to ensure that it was a collective decision and the team spoke, and I had to make sure that we fit based on what the team needed. And even though I understood that this person was a good person, I had to deliver some bad news and help them understand from the perspective of the collective team and based on certain situations why we didn't like them for their personality. And, you know, I had to explain that, listen, you knew this stuff, but the team didn't like you because of this conversation, that conversation, and this is how you made them feel. And their instant belief is like, that's not what I intended. It was perspective. His intention was good. He was trying to do something in a way of His love language was acts of service and gifts. He was just trying to do good. He was trying to insert himself and just do good. But for the team, we needed someone who was going to respect some of the female energy that we had, and that was going to be part of the team. And for them, the way he approached it, it was really tough. And it was just more of a sense of, we are telling you, but you're not listening. We are telling you, but you're not listening. So for him, it was someone actually explaining, hey, listen, here's what they tried to tell you, but you did not understand because you had in your mind what you needed and what you wanted, and you were too busy selling us on you that you weren't understanding what we needed for the team. And ultimately, some of the team members had this wrong perception of you, crew member X, Y, and Z, and this is what they believed. And even though him and I were able to talk it out, we were able to really understand that, hey, listen, it's not your capability, it's not your attitude, but it's just how you can communicate your why. Why are you doing sometimes what you're doing? So I think for you on the other end, I think understanding sometimes your why is really important, is because it helps you to push through, and that individual didn't just give up and go and quit. He ended up going to another team, thriving, going to another team, thriving, and he kept failing and he kept learning and he kept leveling up, and he is doing amazing. But ultimately, that was a situation where sometimes that one interaction where I ensured he felt safe and trusted, and I explained, I had the same situation, and I explained, another situation where, let me explain, I in my teams, would always want to help, and I would always be the one to find out what the problem was, and I would almost spoon feed the solutions before they even had a time to think there was a problem. And that's one thing that I kicked myself later on, is when we grew as a team, I realized that there are situations where people just were so used to me being the decision maker or me being the quarterback that they became reliant on me. And even though I trusted them, I didn't create the right culture where the team felt secure to make the call. And part of it was I was mirroring a type of business, a type of environment that my supervisor, who honestly I couldn't stand at the time, and someone who honestly was a gatekeeper who kept me down in hindsight. Though they were a good person, they were a horrible leader, and we bumped heads to the point where I had to leave. And I had support from other senior executives who understood my viewpoint, but ultimately they were an important cog. And I was a cog who was willing to leave, and I didn't care leaving because it was about doing what was right for my heart. Because when I wasn't true to my heart, that's when my anxiety kicked in. That's when my panic attacks happened, is because I would just hold in my true feelings and my true frustrations. So I really hope that understanding your why can really help you in your journey, because I think it can help you to maybe have a little bit more faith and energy in yourself to really push when times get scary, So again, this is one of these YouTube playlist just check-ins. So I appreciate everyone watching. It's nice to see that there's more and more subscriber growth. So please share this with your friends. Please comment below. As you all grow, I'll understand what you need and what you like, and I can create more content. So thank you so much. It's crazy to see that, we've, on some of these clips, we've had almost 72 people watching in the last 2 days, which I don't think I had 72 people watching one of my clips in a whole 9 months. So, it sounds like the momentum's building. Y'all are liking the message. I'm also being able to deliver it more based on you. So your feedback is really important. So thank you so much. And Ayubowan, which is Sri Lankan, for may you be blessed with a long life. Because if you can reduce your anxiety and your stress, hey, you can live much longer. So instead of living a half cursed life, let's live a good life. All right, y'all. I'm Saul Matthew. Please subscribe. Please tell others. And let's feel more inspired. And I will keep creating more content. And let me learn how to make this more about you and help inspire you. So thank you so much. So one thing you have to really understand is becoming more positive isn't something that we're all meant to. Because, realistically, when you're positive energy, what happens? You gravitate negative energy because, our job is to find balance. Every action has an equal but opposite reaction. So if we are in a phase of good, there are cycles of bad that sometimes might be drawn to the good. Sometimes like that example of two crabs are stuck in a barrel, and the crab who tries to get out, what happens is the other crabs in the barrel will pull the other person down. No one really pushes them out in hopes that they can save them, at least in crab culture. So what I'm really hoping for is the people who are watching and finding hope for yourself is you should really celebrate and find other bright hopes and other people that are being beacons of good. Because honestly, I'm realizing there's more and more